Right. If you're ready, you can start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Najeeb Ranginwala. Thank you very much for inviting. And this presentation is fi sabilillah, and everybody can recite the Durood Sharif. So thank you very much for inviting us. Today our topic is sleep, paradoxical sleeps, and soul, mental health, in Islam. We have a pleasure and honor to have Dr. Imran Khawaja with us. He's a psychiatrist and sleep specialist with more than 20 years of experience, published more than 100 papers on sleep, and published books on sleep. So we will get enriched with his knowledge to go from here onwards. I'm just going to present the basic concept and basic understanding of sleep, so the misconception is removed, and then he will enrich from here onwards to his, and we will learn from that. So I will spend like 10-15 minutes only, and then Dr. Khawaja will take over. So let's go to the slides. Yes, perfect. Okay, so when the human body goes to sleep, it's actually is very active. It's very means the brain is very active during the sleep. And actually, if you look at the fMRIs and all the steady EEG, the brain is using a lot of oxygenation and a lot of work is being done. So it's brain is not actually, it's in a different mode rather than what we think about it. So, just like when you're using a computer, you shut down. It does not mean that, or you do defragmentation, and so it goes in a different mode, but it's very active, just like a computer. So the brain is also very active during the sleep. That's why I use the word paradoxical sleep. In fact, in the REM sleep, it is as active as you're awake. So just keep in mind that sleep does not mean the brain is sleeping. Brain is very active at that time. It's doing a lot of memory processing, consolidation of memory, and a lot of other works is being done. The dreams, the unconscious minds also take care of a lot of things, and a lot of things happening. So I just want to lay the fact that the brain is very active, just like when the heart is beating while you're asleep. So brain is also very active when you're in the state of sleep. So just keep this thing in mind. So the sleep is divided into two big phases. After you from the awakes, you go into non-REM sleep and then REM sleep. Non-REM is non-rapid eye movement. That's what it stands for. And the REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep. So this is how when you do EEG, the different stages of the sleep. So I just to make you aware that once you go to sleep, you go to stage 1 of non-REM, then go to stage 2 of REM, and then stage 3 of non-REM, and then you reverse back to stage 3 and 2, and then you go to REM. So the REM sleep actually comes in after 90 minutes. It does not comes right away unless you have some issue like narcolepsy, or when you're newborn, they are going to REM sleep right away. Otherwise, in normal way of sleeping, REM does not hits right away, and then it keeps on going. In the REM sleep, which is also called paradoxical sleep, is very active mind is going on. There's a lot of activities happening in our mind that if you hear about nightmares, which is in the REM sleep phenomena. So, and a lot of other things also happens here. So just keep in mind that the brain is very active during the sleep, and memory consolidation, the memory formation also take place in the sleep process. So you learn a lot of things, but in sleep, they put together things, what is required, what is not required. So the brain is very active, as well as other things are happening in your mind. So memory is one of the things. So just keep in mind. Other thing which you have to keep in mind is this is something which means we need to know that there are regulators for the sleep. One is hypocretin. This is an exterior neurotransmitter produced by the hypothalamus during the wake cycle. So that is totally produced, and then other is melatonin. So the melatonin is a hormone produced by pituitary gland, which stimulate the hypothalamus. And melatonin is produced at the time when you are when there's less light and you're going towards sleep. That's what. But hypocretin is produced when you're awake. So it's and then the modulators are the rhythms. You have circadian rhythm and hemostatic drive. These are the modulators, and these are the major one. The minor ones are huge. So let me explain where it happens. So when the light falls to eye, it goes to suprachiasmatic nucleus, and then it goes over here to the spinal cord and comes back to the pineal gland. From the pineal gland is melatonin is produced. So during the light when it's coming, it's tried to inhibit the melatonin production. But when the light is not there in your sleep phase, the melatonin is produced from here and goes back to suprachiasmatic nucleus for positive feedback. So keep it quiet. So that's how the phase of melatonin goes through here. So there's a very complicated cycle. Also, there's a lot of other cycles are also contributing to this hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a huge, big center of the brain during the sleep and during awakeness. So I just want to let you know that that's a very important thing. This is another thing which you need to know, that this suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is in the hypothalamus, not only affects the sleep, but your rhythm, the heart rate, the liver, kidney, the mood center, the anxiety centers. This all is connected over here. So each other. So the sleep is very important in different ways. It's a whole rhythm over there. So it's a very complex phenomena, but it works very well. So if you don't get sleep, these are the common diseases happens, which we see in depression, bipolar, anxiety disorder, addiction disorder, ADHD. In ADHD, first thing which you rule out is sleep deprivation or the sleep phenomena. Even in dementia, it's very important. The consolidation of memory takes place during sleep. And we have seen that the size of hippocampus where memory is stored goes smaller if the sleep is affected. So neurocognitive. And in medical disorder like congestive heart failure, COPD, and acid reflux like GERD or pain syndrome, these are very common disease, but there are a lot of other disease where sleep is affected. So just keep in mind that sleep affects a lot of things. And during the normal process of aging, what changes take place in sleep is the stage 1 and 2 goes, the period of time increases, but the stage 3, which is called deep sleep, decreases as you age. And then the REM cycle is slightly changed, but not significantly. But the efficacy of sleep goes down in aging. So sleep does affect as you grow up, and so, but on the whole, it's remained the same. To tell more in detail about sleep, the unconscious mind, dream, and soul, and much more, that will be Dr. Imran Khawaja. I will lead here, and I will ask him to take a lead and enrich us in detail about sleep. Dr. Imran Khawaja, it's all yours now.
Thank you so much, Najeeb. Really appreciate you inviting me to this platform. So I'm a sleep physician. I'm also a psychiatrist, but I'm primarily a psychiatrist and training in sleep medicine. Been always interested in the idea, why do we need sleep? What's the function of sleep? Therefore, and even the scientists still don't know exactly what the functions are, but we know that it's essential for our well-being. So, for example, one of the famous sleep researchers, Alan Roshoffen from Chicago, he had a quote which said that sleep has a vital function to perform, because if it didn't have a vital function, evolutionary process had made a huge mistake, meaning that there is a reason why we sleep, because if we don't sleep, we cannot survive. It's a function of our biology, but also for the spirit and the soul. Now, I'm not a religious scholar, so I'm going to use that disclaimer because I have read verses and what it is in Quran and the Hadith about sleep, but I'm not a religious scholar. So please forgive me if I make a mistake in that area, because the book I've written about sleep the title is called The Power of Your Dream Self-Image. It's about how you see yourself in your dreams and how the way you see yourself in your dreams makes a huge impact on your life. So talking about sleep, why is it important? As Brother Najeeb mentioned, that it is an essential vital function. For example, we know that sleep, when we are sleeping, the brain is not necessarily inactive. Brain is actually very active. That's why we call REM sleep as paradoxical sleep, which means that the brain is highly active and metabolically very active. Therefore, there are things going on in a REM sleep. So we go through two phases, non-REM and REM sleep, and both of them have different functions of sleep. Now, if you look at our body, our organs, they go through different phases during sleep as well. So we think of sleep as something which we are at rest. That is true. The body is kind of rebuilding. The immunity is at its peak during the sleep period because you need sleep for your immunity as well. But then there are so many other functions. For example, your mental health. Now, I'm going to cite and talk about a few studies which were done regarding how sleep can affect mental health as well. So from Islamic point of view, we all know that Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in a lot of their, he used to tell Sahaba not to be up after Isha or not to be active. Also, he would also stop people or forbid them to be praying all night long because he would want them to get rest. And even back then, he knew the important functions of sleep. So I have a few quotes here. For example, one of the things is that the Prophet used to dim lights before he would go to sleep. So he would say to put off the lamps so that there's darkness. And there is scientific evidence of that we sleep much better when it's dark. Because if there is a lot of light around, what it does, it suppresses our melatonin secretion. And what melatonin does is it signals the body that it's time for us to sleep. That's why we sometimes call it as a dark hormone, because the levels of melatonin starts going up, especially when it becomes dark. That's why when we are treating some people who have what we call as delayed sleep phase syndrome or night owl syndrome, where their days and nights are mixed up, or they want to be up all night, or especially the teenagers, we give them the melatonin around 5, 6 p.m. when the darkness starts, and that's the natural rhythm of melatonin. Now, and I think in Quran, there is a lot of mention of sleep. My mother, who reads Quran, and she likes to understand, and she has given me certain verses when I was working on this book back a couple of years ago about how sleep is thought of in Islam, and there are so many verses. So for example, there are different ways in Quran sleep is mentioned. In one verse, for example, it is said it's called Sina, which means that kind of more like a slumber or dozing off. So for example, in that verse says God, no slumber can seize him nor sleep, suggesting that sleep could be thought of as something which is a weakness, because we get sleepy as we are up all night long or all day long. That is the homeostatic process. The longer we are up, the more sleepy we get. So there are two factors, as Dr. Najeeb mentioned. One is the homeostatic drive, which means the longer you're going to be awake, the more sleepy you're going to get. The other one is a circadian drive, which is usually people get a little drowsy. So there's a bit of dip in their alertness level, especially around, say, 2 or 3 p.m. and then around midnight. So those are the times when there is a dip in alertness and people get very sleepy. And there are a lot of other ways sleep has been described in the Quran. So again, as I said, I'm not an Islamic scholar, but there is an emphasis on sleep. So just to pinpoint how back the Islam, and when the Quran talks about sleep, there is scientific basis of that. For example, I think there's some hadith which talks about how Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned about taking naps. So naps is considered to be a good thing, but not long naps. And now we know scientifically that taking small naps are more beneficial rather than taking 2-3 hours of naps. Because in different cultures, in Hispanic culture, and also in Asian cultures, and even in Arabs, we do take naps. Arabs take naps, used to take, kids take naps. So nap is considered to be healthy. And now we know that how it, small naps around 30 minutes, maximum to an hour, how it could really increase your vigilance, how it can increase your brain's capacity to focus and make decisions, and kind of gives you a lot of energy and motivation. So there's a lot of literature, a lot of articles written about how sleep and Islam, how what Islam thinks about sleep. Actually, I have a paper here which is written by a sleep doctor, and it's published in Nature and Science of Sleep. This is a gentleman, Mr. Ahmed Baham, says Quranic insights into sleep, and it's published very recently in the last maybe 5-6 years, and talks about lift. So if somebody wants to learn more about the different verses and how Quran has talked about sleep, I think that that'd be a good article to look into. So I do want to kind of feel that again, this is sleep is such a vast topic. I can focus on what I've done in terms of my research when we were writing this book, my brother and I, and it's about dreams. It's mostly about dreams. Dr. Najeeb has given a good overview about sleep and what the functions of sleep is, what types of sleep do we have. But I do want to start asking if somebody has any questions, any particular questions, so we can focus on that. Can we see if there's any question about dreams or sleep in general?
Brother Imran, go ahead with your research. That will help us to go further, think about it, and go from there.
Okay. So now when we talk about dreams in particular, that is a phenomenon which occurs in REM sleep, in rapid eye movement sleep. But that's not entirely true, because we do get dreams in a non-REM sleep as well. But the quality of dreams are different. So all of us dream, there's no question about it. Even if a person says, well, I don't really dream, it really doesn't make sense, because their brain dreams, they maybe do not remember dreams as such. So dreams are a phenomenon which happens. And in Islam, for example, there's a special emphasis on dreams, which we'll cover that in a few minutes. However, if you look at the Western cultures, I mean, dreams are, some people think of dreams as important, but most people do not. In the preparation, when I was preparing to write the book, I interviewed a lot of scientists. I interviewed a couple of scientists actually who are world renowned in the science of dreams. One of them was Dr. Cartwright, who is now in her late 90s, and she used to be called, in the dream research world, she used to be called the Queen of Dreams, because she has done a lot of research on dreams. She's published a lot of books on dream. Then I spoke with a gentleman, psychologist, PhD psychologist from Canada. He's a researcher, Carlisle Smith, about dreams. So one thing is very common in terms of my conversations with them and what is written about dreams, is that there is certainly an aspect of our subconscious mind which comes out in the dreams. But Freud, you all know who Freud is. Freud said dreams are a royal road to the subconscious or the unconscious mind. Now, obviously, people can deny the existence of subconscious, but most people know that there is part of our mind which we do not have access to, and that is the subconscious mind, just by definition. So how do we get access to it? How do we get access to that subconscious mind? Because that subconscious mind is always at work. It's always uh, working, and you may or you may not know of it. Think of it as an tip of an iceberg. You can see the tip of the iceberg, but the majority of the iceberg is underwater. Similarly, when we think of our mind, we have a conscious mind, which means that we are conscious of what we are talking about, but then we have a subconscious mind. Now, there may be some contradictions, some difference of opinions, about the subconscious mind, but we know that when we are sleeping, I mean, the body is running, you don't remember to breathe, your heart is beating. So there's something organically, even in the brain. Now, scientists are looking at what are the areas in the brain, maybe mostly like the subcortical areas, which might be responsible, which might have something to do with the subconscious. Now, obviously, it is not proven yet, but those are the areas which are making us breathe at night. So we don't have to think about breathing. Our heart is beating all the time, even though we are not awake. So there's part of the brain which may correlate with the subconscious mind. Now, what happens when we sleep? We are not aware of what's going on, especially in dreams. So now let me ask you this. Most of us know that most people remember their dreams. Okay? But when we are in REM sleep, we have dreams and we wake up and we sometimes remember it, but then it kind of fades away. Just like within a few minutes, unless we write it down, unless we ponder about it, the dreams generally fade away unless you write about it. But here's a quote I want you to think about. This is a quote which I wrote in my book as well. It's by Carl Jung, who is a famous psychoanalyst, a student of Freud. Kind of he went away from the teachings of Freud at that point, and he talked about the universal consciousness as well. But this is a quote. He was very much into dreams. So here it goes. A dream should be taken in all seriousness as something that has actually happened to us. It should be treated as a contributory factor in framing our conscious outlook. So what he means is that if you have a dream, and even if you don't remember the dream, your brain, your subconscious mind has experienced it. That's why sometimes people, even if they don't remember their dream, and if they had a bad dream, they wake up not feeling very well. Now, similarly, he says, if we meditate on a dream sufficiently long enough, and we talk about it with us and turn it over and over, something always comes of it. So dreams are messages. Now, in Islam, for example, I was reading an article which said that there could be three types of dreams. It could be that the dream is just a generic dream where a person is having a dream about their worries or whatever is going on in their life. So they're thinking about certain stressors and they get a dream about that. So whatever they're thinking about during the daytime, that could be it. It could come into the dream. But in Islam, it also says that dreams could come from Allah. Dreams could come from Allah, where there are some really some messages or some information about that person. Or dreams could come from the shaitan, which are more scary, negative types of dreams. Now, as I said, I'm not a religious scholar, so I don't feel very comfortable going into the details about the Quranic, because I want to be able to feel comfortable about what I think, and so I'm not a scholar in that way. So I can talk about what we know from the psychological point of view about dreams. So dreams definitely have something to do with the subconscious. Now, there is all talk about the universal subconsciousness, and I am not 100% sure. I'm not sure. I'm a human being. I don't know what that means. Does it mean that it is nur, it is light, it is something to do with God? But there are philosophers, people who believe in the universal subconsciousness, meaning that when we go to sleep, for example, we are getting access to our subconscious mind, and we don't know, we are somehow connected to the universal subconsciousness. We could get messages from the universal subconsciousness. Now think about it. You're dreaming, say you're dreaming, and you don't know where you are. When you're dreaming, you are in your mind. Whatever is happening, we know that there are certain parts of the brain which get active and certain parts of the brain which get inactive. So for example, there's a part, especially like around the frontal lobe area, which kind of gives us logic. So that part of the brain becomes inactive. So certain areas in the frontal lobe which tells us, you listen, this is logic, that's where our executive functioning is. It becomes inactive. That's why when we are dreaming, it doesn't have to be real. For example, in a dream, I could be in England 1 minute and the next minute I will be in the US or in Pakistan, because the logical part of the brain is shut off. So we don't really believe in, we don't really think with the logic. However, we can still sometimes remember ourselves, or be aware of the fact that we are in a dream. And that's what we call as lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming means that we are in a dream, but we know that we are in a dream. Because most of the time when people dream, we do not know that we are in a dream. We think that's real. That's why if something bad is happening or somebody's running after you, you get worried and fearful, and you're running and your heartbeat goes up very fast. That's what happens in REM sleep. But then there are other parts of the body or the brain which are also inactivated. Certain areas, for example, I believe in the parietal area, which tells us where our body is. So, for example, if Brother Najeeb is sitting in his office, this part of that brain is active. It's telling him that he is in his office, in his home. In dreaming, that part of the brain gets inactivated. So we don't know where we are. We don't know our bodies. We don't know the frontal lobe is turned off. So we are in a dream, and we could be in Africa or China or wherever, and next minute we'll be in the US, or we are jumping and we don't die. And so those are the facts. Those are things which we have found out over the years with research, that this is what happens in dreaming. Now, again, there are two types of dreams, REM and non-REM. So REM dreams are more storyline type dreams, which means that it is giving us a story with a lot of emotions. REM has something to do with certain areas, emotional part of the brain. So the emotional part of the brain is activated. That's why there's a lot of emotions. A lot of times it's fear. Now, one of the things which we talk about in a book is that most of us, when we dream, the dreams are negative in nature, in a sense that we are worried about something. They're fear-based dreams. Most of the time, it's fear-based dreams. So when we ask people about how do they think about themselves in their dream, most of the people feel that they don't have a very good self-image of their dreams. So, for example, I'm a believer that in life, we got to have a good self-image of ourselves, because if we don't think of ourselves as somebody who is able to achieve certain things, or if our self-image is poor, it will reflect on our lives, in our happiness, in our all sorts of things which we do, material success and otherwise. But the whole idea that there is a dream self-image as well, which means that when we are dreaming, there's a way we think of ourselves. Now, sometimes we have good dreams, sometimes we have bad dreams, but there are ways we could focus and kind of communicate with the subconscious mind. And Islam has a lot of examples about how we can do istighara, for example, to get input from the subconscious mind. Because as I said, the subconscious mind, if it is connected with the universal subconscious mind, then it has a lot of information which we can get from. So think about it. We are sleeping. How many hours do we sleep in a 24-hour? Generally 7 to 8 hours. And if we live a life of, say, 80 years, we have spent a lot of our time, 1/3 of our time, 20 plus years of our time sleeping. But your brain is active, just like Dr. Najeeb said. Our brain is active, highly active. It is coming up with images. It's coming up with ideas. And we are wasting that time sleeping. Yes, we are resting, no doubt about it. But the thought process which goes on during that time, if we do not utilize it, if we don't learn from it, we are not getting 100% benefit of that. Just like in Islam, there is a whole idea of istighara. Istighara, all of you must know more than me what istighara is, where we pray to God and we pray to get some answers from God. So, and that's what's happened in dreams, or we wake up with a certain feeling. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of examples where people have gotten answers in the scientific community, in the medical community, in the political in community, or also in battlefields where people would think about getting answers from their dreams. Now, even if a person doesn't believe in the universal subconsciousness, or a person is not a believer, to think, no, I mean, there's nothing, it's just think of it from purely biological point of view, and don't think about the religion. There's still a reasoning how you can get benefit if you really record your ideas, as far as your dreams are concerned, or what ideas you have. There's really a scientific basis for that. Let me give you what I think and what most people think in this area, people who have done research in that. So if we all believe in the subconscious mind, meaning simple, the mind is consciousness below what we are conscious of. So it means our bodies, our brain are instruments which are recording everything. I'm talking about events, I'm talking about emotions, I'm talking about feelings. So for example, your subconscious mind, since it's active all the time, it may be recording a lot of information about how people looked at you, how people talk to you. So it is collecting all that information. It is analyzing all that data. So your subconscious mind is thought of as a big mind, whereas your conscious mind is a small mind. So John Keyhope, who's a famous author in Canada, in Vancouver, and I've had several interviews. I talked to him several times about this, and he's written a lot of books about success, about spirituality. He is a guy who went into the woods for 5, 6 years and had a lot of thinking. Obviously, he's not a Muslim, but he wrote several books, and a lot of them are very, very popular books. And he teaches how to get in touch with the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind, think of it is a big, powerful computer which is analyzing everything. So if you are going to ask your subconscious mind a question, and you know how to kind of relate to it and get messages, because the messages are not going to be as clear as, oh, you got to do this. The messages are going to be in the form of a dream or a symbol or a hunch, which you're going to feel, because the subconscious mind does not speak the same language, because it precedes language, meaning even before we learn how to speak different languages, the subconscious mind was there. Our minds are older than when we learn how to speak and talk. And at that time, a lot of things were based on images, symbols. There were a lot of symbols which were, that's how the subconscious mind communicates. Symbols and emotions, because emotions were there right from get-go, even if we didn't have the language. So the subconscious mind communicates in symbols and in emotions or the feelings, what feelings a person has. So when we communicate with the subconscious mind, and sleep is a very good way to do it. Now, we can call it going in an istighara, where we do get help from God. We get some hunch or a message or a dream which tells us whether we should do it or not. But if you look at different examples where people have discovered a lot of things, they have actually used sleep. Just to give you an example of Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, for example, he used to tell people, his students, don't sleep too much. Sleep is a waste of time. But if you look at his life, he used to use sleep to get ideas. So his sleep pattern was what we call as a polyphasic sleep pattern, which means that he would not sleep for 6, 8 hours or take a nap like that. So he would sleep for like maybe half an hour to an hour and be up for 3, 4 hours working hard, and then he would take a nap. So that is the way he could sleep fewer hours. He could sleep 5, 6 hours in a 24-hour, but would get the most benefit, just like the napping. As in our religion, napping is considered as something which is very powerful. And I think in one of the hadiths or somewhere it said that napping is good because the shaitan does not nap. So his sleep pattern was polyphasic, which means that he would sleep for 40 minutes and be up for 3 hours working hard. But then he would go into that twilight zone, meaning that he would be working on a project and he's struggling with it and he doesn't know what to do with it. What he'll do is he would have some ball bearings in his hand, and he would put his hand on a bed or something, and where he had a cot in his own lab, and he would try to sleep. And and as soon as he'd fall asleep, the hand would get loose and the balls would fall and he would wake up. So he was trying to get into that twilight zone, that zone where you are kind of the first stage 1 sleep. As Dr. Najeeb mentioned, the non-REM sleep. There are 3 stages of non-REM sleep. So he would get into the non-REM one, where there is a lot of what we call as theta activity of brain, because and that is the area where supposedly we have access to our subconscious mind. uh, there are different brain frequencies. When we are awake, we are on a beta frequency. When we are getting drowsy, we are getting into more like an alpha state. When we close our eyes, the frequency are different frequencies called alpha. When we get into stage 1, and stage 1 is considered as sort of transitional sleep because we are not fully asleep, we're kind of in between stage, and that stage is most of the time the frequency is theta. So Thomas Edison would go into that phase to get answers, and he'd wake up, and then he would get some sort of a glimpse or an idea, and he'd work on it, and he'd be successful. Similarly, there are examples in medicine. Brother Najeeb, do you remember the example from the benzene ring?
Not at this time. I'm not remembering that.
Okay, so
Recall.
there are several examples. So, for example, let me. This was a scientist. I think. Let me see. Who was working on the benzene ring, and he didn't know like what's the structure, the chemical structure or the organic structure of benzene is. So what he did was, his name is Kakuli. So what he did was, I mean, he just was struggling with it, and he fell asleep. And in his sleep, he went into dreaming, and he saw that there was a snake which is kind of floating in the air, and the snake kind of turns around and bites its own tail, making a ring. And he suddenly woke up and he realized, wow, this could be it. The benzene has a ring structure. So he was able to discover that. And there are hundreds and hundreds of examples where people have gotten ideas. One of the famous authors by the name of Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill is an author who's considered as the father of self-help, or the guru of self-help. He interviewed thousands and thousands of people, successful people, and wrote books. One of his famous book is Think and Grow Rich. Now he talks about that, and you can YouTube that video. Even Napoleon Hill would talk to his subconscious mind. He talks about this book when he finished this book, and he wasn't sure what the title is going to be. So what he did was he was sitting thinking about it, and he had like 100 of those titles, but none of them could make any sense. And what he did was, and his editor and his book agent was calling him on regular phone. Of course, there were no cell phones in those days. And then telling him, listen, we got to have a name of this book, otherwise I'm just going to name it whatever. So he was thinking, and he talked about this in some of his videos, which are still available. He said, listen, I sat down, I communicated with my subconscious mind. I went into a relaxed state of mind, and I asked my subconscious mind to give me the name of the book. And he actually went to sleep afterwards. And around 2 or 3 a.m., he just suddenly woke up without any reason. And the name Think and Grow Rich was on the screen of his mind. And he knew that was the answer. So there is a lot of potential when we sleep. There's a lot of things which we can do in our sleep. We can ask questions, just like when we do in istikhara. Most of us do istikhara, if not all. A lot of people in our religion, they believe in istikhara, they do that. That is help from God, but it's also from your subconscious mind in a sense, because your subconscious mind is smarter than your conscious mind. It is a bigger computer. As I said, John Kehoe talks about subconscious mind as the big brother, which means that it is recording everything. So it knows how it is, and you're not even conscious of whether you made a decision in the past, whether it was a good decision or not, or what happened, or how other people are perceiving you, looking at their body language and everything. So it is computing everything. So when the subconscious mind gives you some clues, you work on it. So in the book, I've quoted an author whose book is Turning Pro, or The Art of War, which is a very famous book. And in his book, he gives an example of a lady who had a dream. The dream was that, she was at work, she was having some uncertainty about her work situation. So she had a dream that she was in a bus, a big bus, like a Greyhound bus, and the bus is going pretty smoothly, but suddenly the bus is running, and suddenly the driver got up and jumped out of the bus. Now everybody started panicking. What is going to happen? I mean, so the girl, obviously, who was in that dream, she got up. She got up and she jumped over to the driver's seat and got hold of the wheel, and things were under control. Now, when she woke up in the morning, she thought about that dream, and she was struggling through some of her work situation. She realized that she got to be in charge of her life. So this author, Bernstein, he talks about that if a person gets a dream like that, don't challenge it, don't doubt it, just take it, whatever the symbol means. So that woman took it as what it meant, meaning that you got to be in charge, take charge of your situation. And she was able to take charge of her work situation, and was able to get promotions and all that. So dreams have a lot to offer. And in this day and world, we don't, part of the problem is that we do not remember our dreams. But there are ways, there are techniques where you can improve your dream memory, which means that you can remember dreams. Now, we still don't know. I was talking to the chairman at the Department of Neurology at UT Southwestern a couple of years ago, and we were talking about the stage REM and all that. And we were debating, how come we do not remember dreams fully? Well, there are ways we can remember dreams, but we have to kind of work on it. It's just like, we practice. With practice, we get better. We write down things. We keep a dream journal, and that helps us write down things, the emotions, and that helps us know ourselves better. I think in Hebrew there's a saying which says, like, a dream is a letter sent to yourself which is unread, meaning that you're writing a letter to yourself and you don't know what it is, but then you're not reading it if you're not really interpreting the dream, or getting to know the dream, or kind of getting to know yourself, because dreams tell us a lot about it. So I'm going to stop here. It was just a sort of a talk about dreams, but let's see if people have questions, and I'm going to look at my notes and see if I can share some more stuff.
Brother Imran and Brother Najeeb, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's an excellent lecture. I really enjoyed, and it was very knowledgeable. A couple of things I still comes to my mind, and this is like Islamic concept, and it's making very clear to me with your presentation. In Islam, we talk about Alame Arwan, Alame Barzakh. So when a person passes away, his soul is taken to Alame Barzakh. So as well as in when you're sleeping, your soul comes out from your body. And there's a debate where it goes. Is it close to Alame Barzakh or around there? And a lot of people talk to people or do things, and they talk about and it makes a little bit sense that it's a huge phenomena we don't know, but it makes a lot of sense to us.
Yes,
but that's I'm learning from you. It makes a lot of sense to me.
That's one of the things I didn't specifically touched on, but you're right. I mean, in Islam, we know that that the soul is taken out. So that's why the Prophet used to say thank you to God when he would wake up, because the soul is taken out and then it comes back, and then we don't know where it goes. You're right. Even if you talk to some scholars, or if you look at some YouTube videos of scholars who've talked about it, they say that this is the phenomenon which happens, but we don't know where it goes. But I mean, we know. So it's like a sleep is more like, so the soul is taken out from what our belief is, and then God puts it back. So again, I can't say much about it, but that's what our belief is. You're right.
Brother Ray, do you have any questions?
Yes. My apologies. Sometimes the sound is not good. Okay, let me go to the other scene. But If you can look at the chat, there's a question there.
Let me see. Assalamualaikum, beautiful. I have been listening to Brother Raid. I would like to ask, how would you define peace of mind from a scientific point of view? When you sleep, what would be peace of mind and how science defines it? And what is the scientific criteria to achieve it? Jazakallah khair. Okay, so the question is, how do you define peace? How do you define peace of mind from a scientific point of view? When you sleep, what would be peace of mind and how science defines it, and what is the scientific criteria to achieve it? Now, it's a bit of a philosophical question. Dalai Lama, who's obviously a religious scholar, he talks about sleep is the best meditation. Now, we talk about, think about go to sleep or sleep over it. So people, sleep certainly can provide you with that peace. But in reality, peace could be described as in different ways. I mean, my brother Rizwan Shuja and I, we've written another book called The Cycle of Fulfillment. It's not about dreams, it's not about sleep, it's about how one should reach peace and fulfillment in life. So fulfillment is not necessarily or peace is not just pleasure. Pleasure is short-lived. Peace or fulfillment, you can correlate those two things together. But scientifically, yes, I mean, it's I don't know the neurochemistry of it. Obviously, there is neurochemistry of people when they are in a peaceful state. We know that when somebody is feeling at ease, somebody is feeling really fulfilled, there is more serotonin in their brain. But it doesn't mean that when we give antidepressants, a person becomes at peace. Because we give antidepressants, people are still not necessarily at peace. So peace, I think, has something to do with how your belief system is, your relationship with God. So for example, I mean, if a person wants to be in peace and they want to go away from the material world, is it possible? I think in Islam, I don't think it's encouraged. It's encouraged to be in a spiritual realm as well as in this dunyavi world as well. So I think keeping a balance, having positive thoughts, keeping one's mental and emotional state where we learn how to be in a positive emotional state, where despite of things going on in our life, despite of stresses, conflicts, we are able to keep that emotional state with our connection to God, with our belief system, can move in that direction where you could say that I'm at peace or I'm fulfilled. But there are other factors in this. And I'm going to ask Brother Najeeb to see what his thoughts are.
Yeah, so it's a very good question, but it's also controversial. What is peace? If you ask Genghis Khan, what is peace? I don't know. Yes, it's their own way of thinking. It's everybody has their own way of peace. And that's a conflicting things to define peace to their level of thinking. A narcissist person have a different way of peace, and a normal person will have a different way of peace. So it's very difficult and to have a peaceful and what they think. So as you said, it's based on your belief what is peaceful. Everybody has a different way of belief, and when you have a belief, then you go around and come around with that. So its answer keeps on changing based on your belief system.
I mean, there's a book actually. I finished another book called Mental and Emotional Fulfillment, which is talking about how one should. There's certain exercises, meditations, some spiritual sayings about different stages of ego development. There's an author, I'm skipping her name, who talks about ego development, different stages of ego development, and then so it goes again. It's hierarchical, but it's non-judgmental in a sense. We don't need to judge somebody who's at a lower level, somebody who just thinks of themselves and they can treat other people for their own benefit, maybe is at a lower level. But as we go on, think about people who are like Baba Bhulle Shah, or people who are spiritual beings, like say people like Mother Teresa. Those are at a stage of ego development where all they're doing it, they're at peace. You can see, if you look at Edie, for example, who's passed away, you can see that sense of peace because they have gone through, and we talk about those ego stages, development in those ego stages. Most of us are in a state which is called industrial state, where we are like, we're educated people, we belong to a group, we don't want to hurt people, but we are still living in this life where we are competitive, we are trying to achieve certain goals, worldly goals, materialistic goals. But as people move on to the next, where those goals don't matter anything. For example, and again, it might be controversial, like people like Bill Gates, for example, I mean, who has attained everything as far as material goal is now, he is at a level, not at the highest spiritual level, but at a level where he can spend his money, he can try to help the world, he can try to eradicate malaria from the subcontinent, those kinds of things. So they have gone to that level. Money doesn't matter, material things don't matter. But if you think of somebody else who are spiritual beings, are most at peace. But so there's a lot to do with our ego development. As we get better, we get more at peace. Again, as Brother Najeeb said, this is controversial. One of the concepts I want to say is from a famous author who talks about 6 human needs. And the same thing happens, that we go from certain human needs to the ones which are more spiritual in nature. For example, all of us have needs, need to be certain, need to be significant, that we are better than somebody. So all of us have that need, but how we are ranking that need is going to be, it definitely is going to affect how we do or feel spiritually. So for example, most of us have a need of love and connection. Most of us have a need to contribute, like you're contributing to giving your free time and talking about it to help people. So the need to contribute, if somebody has a need to contribute and that is their first need, to help others, I mean, to not to really think, oh, what is it in it for me? I mean, they ultimately, they're going to be successful in the worldly world as well, but they're going to be more at peace. They're not thinking of themselves, they're thinking about other people. So I think that has a lot to do with those kinds of things as well.
Yeah, very nicely said. Other thing I can add is, if you look at Huzur Sallam and Sahabas and Khulafai Rashidin, they have, that is the ideal, because in the height of calamity and disaster, they are thankful for Allah. And that is what we need to do, that, like we start blaming each other rather than look at Allah challenge you, by giving all these things. Even you see people who are begging, and they didn't decide, the kid didn't decide to go into that body. But, so Allah give you all those challenges, and they take it, and they are very thankful, and they take it as a challenge, as an iman, and go up higher rather than blaming each other.
Exactly.
And this is the biggest fault in ours nowadays, is that we are so materialistic that we blame each other, not to look at ourselves, that Allah is giving you a challenge.
Yeah.
And let's go up. Don't criticize others. Look at yourself and take it from here and do shukr.
Absolutely.
So that is where the iman comes in, and we don't do that. So that is a learning lesson which we were talking in tafsir also, that this is a part of shukr, part of it, and you will be very peaceful. Huzur Sallam time, and everybody was very peaceful. Before the war, they were peaceful. Jang-e Badr, Jang-e Uhud, they were very peaceful. They were waiting for the moment. Allah give them moment, and they will share their life. They are very in the peace. That is the concept we need to understand. Why they are peaceful and we are not peaceful. Mm-hmm. They have nothing, and they're still very peaceful. Why? That is the thing to ponder. It's not the materialistic world. We are so stuck with the materialistic world that we need this, we need that, and we are lost. And Allah gives you more than. Okay, go ahead. You need more money? Get. You need fame? Go ahead. And we are stuck into this, revolving circle, and we are stuck into it, and shaitan is having fun. Okay, great, we put you on a great cycle. And so anyhow, so we have to come out, understand this concept. What is peace is, I have an iman and go higher, and look at Huzur Sallam and Sahaba, what they were doing, and even they didn't had anything, but they were very peaceful, and they were looking for the moment. Allah give them moment, and they will go ahead. And so that is what my learning lesson is, That's why I'm saying peace is full is a very controversial the way how you look at it. But if you look under the scope of Iman and Islam, this is what the peace is, what Huzur said, what Sahabas demonstrated in our life, in their life, and we should follow them. That is where the peace comes in. Nothing will be like Eidi is very peaceful, was very peaceful. He had nothing here, but he was very peaceful. So he reached to a higher level of thinking, and we should also do that to help each other and get into Iman concept and be shukr for Allah. And then Allah will give you more. That is my way of looking into it.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Absolutely. But if you think about it, anything which we do, anything in life, whatever we are trying to accomplish in this materialistic world, we are going it to just get some sort of a mental feeling or emotional feeling. If you want to buy, be a billionaire, it is like you got to feel that emotional. So why not just be at peace, and why not make that achievement of mental and emotional fulfillment as one of your primary goal in life, by reducing all the negative emotions around it? And Islam talks about it, and there's ways you could do it, like you can meditate, you can follow Islamic path. But also, as Brother Najeeb said, changing the interpretation of things, putting the label on events. For example, two people can have a same thing happen to them. One might think, oh, this is the end of their life. The other thinks it is a new beginning. One might think it's a punishment from God. The other thinks it's just a challenge. God is testing me. So the meaning which we attach to those events is going to be very important, and people are going to have different outcomes and different state of mind. So the peace is going to be with the person who thinks of it as raza of God, will of God, but it's a challenge. I'm going to take care of things, versus somebody says God is punishing me.
Brother Reid, anybody has any questions?
Yes, there's another question from Sister Amani. It's also in the chat.
So the question is, can traumas affect the ability to dream? In other words, can someone who went through a tragic event loss lose the ability to dream? Well, that's a very good question. Obviously, we treat patients who have post-traumatic stress disorders. So people can lose the ability to dream, yes, but they can have bad dreams as well. One of the symptoms, the core symptoms of post-traumatic stress, where somebody has gone through severe trauma in their life, is that they get negative, bad dreams related to that trauma. So I don't think they necessarily lose the ability to dream, but they may not remember it, because when trauma strikes, a lot of times the way our ego, the consciousness, the ego works is that sometimes we people don't, they try to suppress it, so don't remember it. But then there are some medications. A lot of times people who are on medications can suppress the REM sleep, so it may reduce the amount of REM sleep or the dreaming a person gets. We know that when people are depressed or they have post-traumatic stress disorder, they have actually more dreaming. They have more intense dreaming. They have longer periods of time when they dream. And antidepressants, they suppress that. Doesn't mean that's how they treat the depression or the anxiety, but at least that is one of their side effects. But it's a valid question. There are people who don't dream, partly because, they may be having hypervigilance disturbance in their sleep. As a result, they're not able to go into consolidated sleep. So that could be one of the things which can happen.
Right, very good. Brother Imran, a quick question. Are you available next week?
I'm certainly, I can make, I have a talk next Saturday, which is on the 13th for SMU students, psychology students, but I'm happy to be part of any conversation. Yes.
Yeah, because we would like to have more of you, honestly. It was great to see two psychiatrists conversation.
Okay. No, I'll be happy.
And they're agreeing on it.
Yeah, but give me an idea what the conversation is about. So
we will continue on this and probably try to dive in more into sleep and how we can relate to it. I'm
Okay.
sure the group has a lot of questions because we're reaching to the end of the presentation or the
Sure.
time.
If you are comfortable, I can invite my brother as well, so we can have a dialogue. Dr. Najeeb, me, and my brother, who's a co-author of a couple of books with me, written books on the new book which is coming out on spirituality.
Well, that's
Brother
wonderful.
Imran, you are most welcome to invite anybody.
Okay.
This is an open talk where anybody can join in, and as long as they can contribute, they are always most welcome.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. And also, even if they cannot contribute, if they want to listen, learn everything, we want more people. The platform is open to everybody, inshallah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and the link is the same link, and we meet every Sunday at 8:15.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So if there are more questions, if you guys would like to remember them and join us, if you expect that you will not join us next week just because you have a conflict, anybody who has questions, you can ask. Now we have a couple of minutes. If
I
not,
have a question, brother.
Yes, go ahead.
So my question is, the sleep is, as our belief is that our soul leaves our body during sleep. But is there any research, any scientific research initiated by Muslim psychiatrists, psychologists to test this, that what happens to the body when we sleep? Is it close to that body is close to a dead body, or?
No, obviously the body is not dead because the heart is beating and the organ systems are working. So the body is not necessarily dead. Again, this is what scientifically we know. So obviously, so I don't think. Obviously, there is some research done on that. What happens during when we sleep? But it's hard to do research in terms of what happens to the soul. I mean, nobody knows what happens after death. I mean, God is the one who knows about it. So, but we know that our bodies are not dead. I mean, they're highly, their functions are going on. The food is getting digested. The kidneys are working. Their metabolism changes, but it's happening. The brain is active. So think of brain as a transmitter, a red transmitter, which is connected to something. So again, these are things which we don't have any understanding, which we can't describe it. I mean, symbolically, maybe we can have theories, but it's hard to really do the research. When I was talking to Rosalind Cartwright, who's the famous dream researcher, she said part of the problem is when we are doing research on sleep is that especially the REM sleep when we are in dreaming sleep is so unstable, which means that even if you touch the person a little bit, the person gets out of the REM sleep. So REM sleep is highly unstable. When you get out of REM sleep, you're fully alert because your brain has been active. So you don't wake up feeling very sleepy or something. When you wake up out of a dream, your mind is all alert. So it's hard to know. I mean, I can't say, I mean, I don't think of there's any research which is scientifically proven one thing or the other.
Okay, thanks.
Only thing,
And
one thing, go ahead.
Sorry, you can say, you can add anything you have.
Okay.
I'll ask
So
later.
in Islam, the concept of actually in Quran, it's already mentioned that the ruh is you cannot understand more in detail. I mean, it's written over there. It's beyond the scope of human to understand the concept of ruh. And so to understand where the ruh goes and what it does, it's science is clueless right now. It's learning a lot more, but it's still science does not believe what happens because it cannot materialize the concept of spirit or ruh. So there is a struggle going on, but there is a huge controversy, and they are learning a lot about the universal consciousness. What is that? So there's a lot of debates going on, and they're learning a lot of things, but they cannot quantify it because it's beyond their scope. Till they learn it, which Allah has already said that ruh you will not learn. It's nur. You're not going to learn in your lifetime, anybody's lifetime. So let's see what happens. I believe what Allah is saying. Let science figure out. So that's my way of looking at it.
Yeah, Jazakallah. My second question is there any relation of between healthy sleep and the dreams? Like if you have dreams, frequent dreams, does it indicate that you are having healthy sleep, or it's just normal, like most people forget their dreams. I know that most of your dreams you cannot remember when you wake up. But I feel like for my own, with the age, I feel like I do not have as many dreams as I used to have in young age, and I used to remember them with complete details, but not now. So is there any relation between how we
of course,
sleep?
there is like a relationship of so when we think about dreams, dream is a phenomenon, especially the type of dreams which we are talking about, the imagery, the emotions that comes out of stage REM sleep. Now there are certain sleep disorders which can affect the stage REM sleep. For example, sometimes people who snore, they may have sleep apnea. They don't go into REM sleep because every time they go into REM sleep, the body kicks them out of the REM sleep, because in REM sleep, our muscles are paralyzed. Our whole body is paralyzed with the exception of a few muscles like the eye muscles and the diaphragm. So when we are going into REM sleep, our muscles get paralyzed. And if somebody has sleep apnea, their neck muscles, their tongue, they get more relaxed and cause more sleep apnea, which means the person is having cessation of breath. And then the body wakes them up or gives them an arousal, so they don't go into REM sleep in a consolidated fashion. So that could be one reason, but there are medications which could do that. But in general, yes, if the quality of sleep is not good, somebody is not doing physically not doing very well or not very healthy, that causes what we call as sleep fragmentation. And as a result, people don't go into the dreams that much. So that's, you're right. I mean, that certainly can be one of the reasons.
Okay, thanks. Jazakallah.
Thank you, Dr. Imran. Let's. I know you are busy, and we can discuss next week. And really appreciate your input. It was very thoughtful and knowledgeable. I learned it, and hopefully everybody also did. And thank you for your time to spend with us. And that was very.
Okay, my friend. Thanks a lot.
جزاكم الله خير. Just do the dua. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. إن شاء الله we'll see you next week. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for all of us.
جزاك الله خير.